Okay.
Oh, that's fine. I don't mind. I just hope she's okay. Well, welcome, and students who are abroad, welcome. This is the first time I'm videotaping our class, or any class for this semester. I'm Anna, and it's good to see you all. I am going to be doing some O. Henry today. This is kind of handy. I don't need to hold anything. Cool. My wife gave me a haircut last week, so I don't know. Pretty good. I mean, considering she's no professional, turned out pretty well. Oh. All right. In case anyone here does not know the address of this page, it is this. tinyurl.com/O'Brien. No, I said it wrong. Please let me start again. tinyurl.com/OB classes. O'Brien classes was the old homepage. And I get used to it. All right. Wait, let me just take a look here and see if the calendar is still working. Here it is, calendar of upcoming events and due dates. Let's check it out. Yeah, still working, good. All right. This is LIT1, that's the name of the class. If you ever want to refer to the class, for me, please use LIT1, not the Chinese name or not the number or whatever like that, because I don't remember numbers and I can't read Chinese. Actually, I could probably read that, but I'd rather not. That one is so much more elegant and compact. All right, well, let's see what we can do. Oh, no. Talk Like a Pirate Day is gone for now. That's too bad. Of course, we can still talk like a pirate. What we've got here is a municipal report by O. Henry. Seems to me I've got a copy of that here. Let's see. Yes. Okay. I've got a few different versions of this available. We can use this one. The original is right here, recorded by the VOA. That's right. This story was published, as you can see, in 1904. The storyteller's name here is Shep O'Neill. We can listen to it as we look at the text.
Our story, Municipal Report. It was written by O. Henry. 04. Here is Shep O'Neill.
It was raining as we finished our meeting, back from her small, tired face. She wore a pale yellow dress.
Huh? Oh, I see. I was adjusting the place in the story rather than the volume. Sorry about that. Now I'll go back to the beginning and try again.
Our story today is called A Municipal Report. It was written by O. Henry and first published in 1904. Here is Chef O'Neill with the story.
Welcome.
It was raining as I got off the train in Nashville, Tennessee. A slow, gray rain. I was tired, so I went straight to my hotel. A big, heavy man was walking up and down in the hotel lobby. Something about the way he moved made me think of a hungry dog looking for a bone. He had a big, fat, red face and a sleepy expression in his eyes. He introduced himself as Wentworth Caswell, Major Wentworth Caswell, from a fine Southern family. Caswell pulled me into the hotel's barroom and yelled for a waiter. We ordered drinks. While we drank, he talked continually about himself, his family, his wife, and her family. He said his wife was rich. He showed me a handful of silver coins that he pulled from his coat pocket. By this time, I had decided that I wanted no more of him. I said goodnight. I went up to my room and looked out the window. It was 10 o'clock, but the town was silent. A nice, quiet place, I said to myself as I got ready for bed. Just an ordinary, sleepy southern town. I was born in the South myself, but I live in New York now. I write for a large magazine. My boss had asked me to go to Nashville. The magazine had received some stories and poems from a writer in Nashville named Azalea Adair. The editor liked her work very much. The publisher asked me to get her to sign an agreement to write only for his magazine. I left the hotel at 9 o'clock the next morning to find Miss Adair. It was still raining. As soon as I stepped outside, I met Uncle Caesar. He was a big old black man with fuzzy gray hair. Uncle Caesar was wearing the strangest coat I had ever seen. It must have been a military officer's coat. It was very long, and when it was new, it had been gray. But now, rain, sun, and age had made it a rainbow of colors. Only one of the buttons was left. It was yellow, and as big as a 50-cent coin. Uncle Caesar stood near a horse and carriage. He opened the carriage door and said softly, "Step right in, sir. I'll take you anywhere in the city." "I want to go to 861 Jasmine Street," I said, and I started to climb into the carriage. But the old man stopped me. "Why do you want to go there, sir?" "What business is it of yours?" I said angrily. Uncle Caesar relaxed and smiled. "Nothing, sir, but it's a lonely part of town. Just step in and I'll take you there right away." 861 Jasmine Street had been a fine house once, but now it was old and dying. I got out of the carriage. "That will be $2, sir," Uncle Caesar said. I gave him 2 $1 bills. As I handed them to him, I noticed that one had been torn in half and fixed with a piece of blue paper. Also, The upper right-hand corner was missing. Azalea Adair herself opened the door when I knocked. She was about 50 years old. Her white hair was pulled back from her small, tired face. She wore a pale yellow dress. It was old, but very clean. Azalea Adair led me into her living room. A damaged table, 3 chairs, and an old red sofa were in the center of the floor. Azalea Adair and I sat down at the table and began to talk. I told her about the magazine's offer. She told me about herself. She was from an old Southern family. Her father had been a judge. Azalea Adair told me she had never traveled or even attended school. Her parents taught her at home with private teachers. We finished our meeting. I promised to return with the agreement the next day and rose to leave. At that moment, someone knocked at the back door. Azalea Adair whispered a soft apology and went to answer the call. She came back a minute later with bright eyes and pink cheeks. She looked 10 years younger. "You must have a cup of tea before you go," she said. She shook a little bell on the table, and a small black girl about 12 years old ran into the room. Azalea Adair opened a tiny old purse and took out a dollar bill. It had been fixed with a piece of blue paper, and the upper right-hand corner was missing. It was the dollar I had given to Uncle Caesar. "Go to Mr. Baker's store, Evie," she said, "and get me 25 cents worth of tea and 10 cents worth of sugar cakes, and please hurry." The child ran out of the room. We heard the back door close. Then the girl screamed, her cry mixed with a man's angry voice. Azalea Adair stood up. Her face showed no emotion as she left the room. I heard the man's rough voice and her gentle one. Then a door slammed, and she came back into the room. "I am sorry, but I won't be able to offer you any tea after all," she said. "It seems that Mr. Baker has no more tea. Perhaps he will find some for our visit tomorrow." We said goodbye. I went back to my hotel. Just before dinner, Major Wentworth Caswell found me. It was impossible to avoid him. He insisted on buying me a drink and pulled 2 $1 bills from his pocket. Again, I saw a torn dollar fixed with blue paper with a corner missing. It was the one I gave Uncle Caesar. How strange, I thought. I wondered how Caswell got it. Uncle Caesar was waiting outside the hotel the next afternoon. He took me to Miss Adair's house and agreed to wait there until we had finished our business. Azalea Adair did not look well. I explained the agreement to her. She signed it. Then, as she started to rise from the table, Azalea Adair fainted and fell to the floor. I picked her up and carried her to the old red sofa. I ran to the door and yelled to Uncle Caesar for help. He ran down the street. 5 minutes later, he was back with a doctor. The doctor examined Miss Adair and turned to the old black driver. "Uncle Caesar," he said, "run to my house and ask my wife for some milk and some eggs. Hurry." Then the doctor turned to me. "She does not get enough to eat," he said. "She has many friends who want to help her, but she is proud. Mrs. Caswell will accept help only from that old black man. He was once her family's slave. Mrs. Caswell, I said in surprise. I thought she was Azalea Adair. She was, the doctor answered, until she married Wentworth Caswell 20 years ago. But he's a hopeless drunk. He takes even the small amount of money that Uncle Caesar gives her. After the doctor left, I heard Caesar's voice in the other room. Did he take all the money I gave you yesterday, Mrs. Ilya? Yes, Caesar, I heard her answer softly. He took both dollars. I went into the room and gave Azalea Adair $50. I told her it was from the magazine. Then Uncle Caesar drove me back to the hotel. A few hours later, I went out for a walk before dinner. A crowd of people was talking excitedly in front of a store. I pushed my way into the store. Major Caswell was lying on the floor. He was dead. Someone had found his body on the street. He had been killed in a fight. In fact, his hands were still closed into tight fists. But as I stood near his body, Caswell's right hand opened. Something fell from it and rolled near my feet. I put my foot on it, then picked it up and put it in my pocket. People said they believed a thief had killed him. They said Caswell had been showing everyone that he had $50, but when he was found, he had no money on him. I left Nashville the next morning. As the train crossed a river, I took out of my pocket the object that had dropped from Caswell's dead hand. I threw it into the river below. It was a button, a yellow button, the one from Uncle Caesar's coat.
You have just heard the story, A Municipal Report. It was written by O. Henry and adapted for special English by Donna DeSanctis. Your storyteller was Shep O'Neill.
Cool, man. All right. As the announcer just said, this is an adjusted version for simpler English. I have the whole story here, this one. And it's got a lot more to it. This version that we just read and listened to has the main idea, the main points, and the most important dialogue and stuff like that. But it's missing more than half of the text. So that's good to know. But I don't know, I just think it's an interesting story. So I think we understand at this point why that one special $1 bill that had been fixed with paper and had a corner missing, how that got to be in Major Caswell's pocket. Uncle Caesar, the black driver, had received the money from the narrator. The narrator noticed Miss Adair had that in her pocket too when he got to her house. And it must be that Uncle Caesar gave her both dollars from the narrator. Without us being there, it seems to be that Major Caswell had gone back home to his wife, Azalea Adair, as she's known, and taken the bills himself and brought them back to the hotel. Why he goes back to the hotel all the time, I don't understand, but he likes to hang out there and talk to people, I guess. So the minor mystery of the dollar bill seems to have been explained within the story. What's more confusing, I think, is that button from Uncle Caesar's coat. I like the way O. Henry set that up for us. He describes, on the very first moment that we met Uncle Caesar, he describes the coat that he's wearing, which used to be gray and now is a rainbow of colors. It only had one button on it, and that button was yellow, and it was about the size of a 50-cent piece, which is about this big. So rather a large button. And then he doesn't talk about the button again until the very end of the story. In my mind, I have imagined how that button came to be in Caswell's hand when he died. I wonder if you have an image of what happened there. Anyone want to talk about their idea? I'm very curious. I know you're not used to speaking out in class. And it seems that even though you're out of high school, it's still that way. Here's what I think. Uncle Caesar's devoted to Azalea Adair. And he's not the family's slave anymore, of course, because at this time in the history, the practice of black slavery was illegal at that point. But still, Uncle Caesar stays there and gives him all the money, gives her all the money that he receives by driving people around. And he also helps in the house, apparently, too. Here's what I think. Oh, let's not forget about that $50 in that. The $50 that the narrator gave Azalea Adair. He said, by the way, I'm just referring to the story, he said that it was money from the magazine, the publisher. But the way he tells us this, it sounds like that's not true. He said, I said that it was money from the publisher, but probably it was a gift from the narrator instead. That was my impression. At any rate, we hear, when we see the dead body of Caswell, Major Caswell, he doesn't have the $50, but someone said that he had been showing off that he had $50. So here's what I think. It said that Caswell had died in a fight, apparently. What I think is, well, of course we understand that it's normal for Caesar to bring money to Azalea Adair, the writer, and then whatever money that Azalea has, Major Caswell comes and takes it from her. And that's the reason why she doesn't have enough to eat, why she fainted. So I imagine that the night just after Azalea Adair got that $50, Caswell went back home. If he even really lives there, I'm not even sure. But, and managed to take the $50 away from Azalea Adair and put it in his own pocket. When Uncle Caesar found out about this, now this is my guesswork here, as when Uncle Caesar found out that Caswell, names are very hard for me, by the way. I often mess up names, and I beg your pardon. I probably will have a hard time remembering anybody's name in this class, for example. Please forgive me, if you will, or be patient with me as I try to learn. For example, I don't know who's going to the bathroom now. Sorry. So Major Caswell has the $50 in his pocket. Uncle Caesar finds out from Azalea Adair that the money had been taken by Caswell. So Caswell is habitually going to that hotel, and Uncle Caesar knows that. So he, angry, goes to find Caswell and drags him out of the hotel into the street. And although Uncle Caesar seems to be an old man, and we don't know how old Caswell is. We know that his wife is about 50, which is not, I mean, I'm 50. It's not like Azalea Adair is very old, but she has white hair already, which is maybe more due to stress. And we might imagine that Caswell is not super old either. At any rate, Uncle Caesar is apparently strong enough to beat up Major Caswell so severely that Caswell dies. And as they're fighting, I imagine, this is just my imagination again, Caswell must have grabbed the coat that Caesar is wearing and pulled off the button and still has his hands ready to try to fight back. But he died anyway, with the button in his hand. So Caesar, having won the fight, goes and picks up the $50 to bring it back to Azalea Adair. And then when the narrator's there, Caswell's hand opens and the button falls out and the narrator picks it up. And we know the rest. It's interesting that this one particular dollar bill it looks so special with a corner missing, and it had been fixed with blue paper, which is quite unusual, I think. I've never seen anyone fix a dollar bill with blue paper before. But it's important that we understand it's the same dollar bill every time. Oh, just to mention it, this may be obvious, I'm not sure, but what I imagine is, first, oh, I got it. Remember that Azalea Adair's Azalea Adair's family had been rich, and her father had been a judge, and she must consider Southern hospitality to be a serious thing. The tradition is for a rich Southern family, it's important to be very gracious and generous to their guests. And I think this still is something that Azalea Adair values. So, wait, I want to look back at this again. is this one. Okay, let me find it here. Okay, so well, here's the part of the story right here. By the way, there were a lot of typing mistakes in the original document, and I was fixing them one by one. Yeah, I'll just use this one for a little while. Okay. So they had been talking about the magazine's offer, and she told me about herself. She was from an old Southern family. Her father had been a judge. And Azalea Dare had been taught privately at home, finished the meeting, promised to return with the agreement the next day, and rose to leave. At that moment, someone knocked at the back door. Azalea, oh, I forgot my mask. Oh my goodness. I beg your pardon. A lot of you are not wearing masks either, so I don't feel too bad. Yay. This must be the top here. Made in Taiwan. And made in Taiwan. I wasn't made in Taiwan. So I just wanted to show off that I had shaved in the morning, so because I feel better having shaved in the morning, but I can't shave every morning. If I shave every morning, my face gets all ripped up, and it's terrible. I mean, it's pretty bad already, so you know. I just wanted to get the right order here. So the meeting was ordered. The narrators got up to leave. At that moment, someone knocked at the back door. She went to answer the caller. She came back a minute later with bright eyes and pink cheeks, and she looked 10 years younger. And she says, "You must have a cup of tea before you go." Well, I think from my point of view, this is the way that she ought to treat her guests normally. But up until that moment, she didn't have any money to buy tea. And so now she's very happy because she can be a better hostess. She shook the bell. There was a small black girl about 12 years old. We don't know exactly who she is. Her name is Impy. Impy, there. And she wants to go to the store to get 25 cents worth of tea and 10 cents worth of sugar cakes. So about 35 cents. The child ran out of the room. We heard the back door close. The girl screamed. Her cry mixed with a man's angry voice. Azalea Dare stood up. She went out of the room. I heard the man's rough voice and her gentle one. Then the door slammed and she came back to the room. "I'm sorry, but I won't be able to offer you any tea after all. It seems that Mr. Baker has no more tea." Okay, well, I think the thing about Mr. Baker has no tea, that's nonsense. To me, Impy had no time to go to the store at all. And it seems to me probably what happened was that rough voice is Major Caswell. And he's grabbing the money out of Impy's hands. And probably out of Azalea's hands too. There we go. And then that evening, he insists on buying me a drink and pulled two $1 bills out of his pocket. And I suggest these are the same $2 bills from the narrator originally. It's just that one of them looks very special, the other one, it looks normal. Right. Right. Cover this pretty well. Let's see. By the way, it's interesting to see this word here spelled out like this, Mrs. And of course it sounds the same as, you know, tie, Mrs. But if you're going to write down the whole word Mrs., you don't write it that way. That's not what it means at all. Mrs. would be more than one shout kind of thing. It would be, because Mrs. is short for mistress, not for Mrs. Doesn't make sense. Oh well. So here's a question that I'd like you to think about. Why is it that the narrator holds on to that button at the end of the story, and only finally when they're going over a bridge does he take the button out and throw it over the bridge into the water underneath? Why didn't he, for example, bring it to the police or show anybody? If the narrator had shown this button to the police, for example, and this is, by the way, a small southern town, it seems to me that someone would have recognized the button, because probably most people in that neighborhood would know Uncle Caesar and recognize his coat and the button, the one button that the coat had. In that case, that would have been pretty good evidence that the fight that Caswell had was with Uncle Caesar. And in that case, he would probably, because he's a black man, he would probably have been killed for the crime of murdering Caswell. But the narrator has some sympathy in his heart and doesn't want Uncle Caesar or Miss Adair to fall down. Oh, I mean, or to have any trouble. That startled me. So I believe the reason why he hung on to the coat jacket pocket, the button is what I'm trying to say. The reason why he held on to the button and then later threw it into a river was because he wanted to keep Uncle Caesar safe. Because apparently Miss Adair relies on Uncle Caesar for, you know, her life. So the other question is, what do you think life will be like for Azalea Adair, Uncle Caesar, and those other characters now that Major Caswell is no longer part of their lives? It seems we've got only one person who has a job, and that's Uncle Caesar. He would probably want to continue working in some capacity or other, probably, you know, still using that carriage. But now he can bring it back to Azalea Adair, who can keep the money and spend it instead of having it stolen every time. She'll also have a lot less stress in her life, knowing that no one's going to come and steal the money. It seems to me that Azalea Adair, although a good writer, does not seem to have very much of a social life. Maybe that would change. She likes to be a hostess, after all, we know that. Oh, and she's going to be making money. I take it back when I said she's the only, Uncle Caesar's the only one earning money, because now Azalea Dare will have money from her writing. Well, good for them. My impression is that they're going to have a much better life now that the drunk is dead. That's good. Now, after all of this stuff, the only thing I'm really curious about is why is the title of this story a municipal report? I'm not even really sure exactly what municipal means. Relating to a town or district or its governing body. So, in this case, the name of the town is Nashville, Tennessee, which now is a city, but at this time it seems quite small. So a municipal report would be a report about Nashville in this case. It's more about the town itself than its governing body. The government, in other words. Huh. What is another word for municipal? What do we got? Not important. All right. All right. It's almost time for the bell, and that's nice. I can put my bags away and things like that, because I live in Changhua County, in Shetou. Does anyone know about Shetou? Yeah, that's right. Their specialties are socks and guavas. Yeah, sometimes they put a guava into the sock. I don't know why. It's a lie, I'm just kidding. All right, great. His name, Wentworth, is a little interesting. Let's talk about that after the break. I also want to take a look at the full version and talk about plot in the story. Right, good. Yeah.